what's up, you guys? My name is Supersnowolf, and we are back with another episode of LEGO Arts. So, in the last episode, we did a showcase on some LEGO clone troopers, which I'm still working on with Bly, Agree, and Thorn. So, hopefully that showcase will be done soon, but I still need to work on a couple of figures there. But in the meantime, I decided to do sort of like a quick minifigure just for fun. So here we have Terry McGinnis' Batman from Batman Beyond. So, for those of you who don't know, earlier on in the channel, I did one episode of LEGO Arts. I think it was like DC armored figures. Where I did Dr. Fate, Nightwing from Injustice 2, there's Owlman from Crisis on Infinite Earths, and the Batman Beyond suit from the Arkham games. And I still love that minifigure. I still have it, and I still have it like on my shelf. But recently I've been like rewatching Batman the Animated Series and also Batman Beyond, and I keep watching both of those shows, and it's just like, oh, I want to do some customization. So, like what I did with the Mr. Freeze minifigure, I decided to go back to like Batman Beyond and actually do a Batman Beyond figure more with the animated version than with the armored Arkham version. Because while I do like the Arkham version, and I think the armor is still pretty cool, I wanted to give a try of my interpretation of Terry McGinnis' Batman from that show. And that show in general, if you haven't seen it yet, huge recommendation. It is really, really fantastic and one of the best Batman programs ever created. And with this minifigure, while there's a couple of changes I'd want to go back and fix, I think in the end this turned out really cool, and I'm really glad to finally showcase it to you guys. So, as you guys know the whole drill, we're going to take this minifigure, do a review in it, explain my process, why we went this route, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get the showcase on the road. Getting a closer look at this figure, we can see like how I proceed through for Batman Beyond. So, for this minifigure, it was definitely a little interesting to do compared to the other Batman Beyond minifigure. And I'll do like some short comparisons like back and forth here and there throughout this video. But when looking at this figure, when first like customizing it, it was like pretty easy to do. All I really had to do was just like get a black torso based minifigure and like completely remove the original decal printing underneath, like clean it up, do a little sanding here and there, and providing like some new stuff to like apply on like the decal. You can see that like I actually went back and did some paint work with it, and that was actually sort of intentional on what I wanted to do, because like how I did with the Dark Knight Trilogy minifigure, I wanted the full suit to like blend in together, to like match up in like the same color and everything. So you can see like I did some like repainting on like the arms. You can tell by some of the paint chipping off a little bit on the legs. I'm not really too concerned about it because the base black underneath was pretty much the same. In fact, I probably could have gone just like come back with like a glossy coating with like the arms and the head, maybe the torso. I didn't really do it on the torso because I didn't want to risk the print of the paper like coming off and everything. So I pretty much just like fully painted it in the acrylic black, which isn't super terrible, but you can kind of see like it's a little blocky here and there. But ignoring past that, it does sort of like keep up with like the Batman Beyond coloration. Now, when looking at the arms, you can clearly see that like I added in some molding clay, but this time I used the Procreate clay. I'm really loving that stuff. It's really turning out really, really cool. And I even like sculpted a majority of the cowl with it. So like you can see on the sides, like he's got like his spiked gauntlets. Like, of course, like as Batman should always have. And I really like these because I didn't have to glue them on. Because whenever I've used the molding clay I've been using for quite a while, I always like applied on some glue as sort of like a reinforcement to make sure it would stay on. But this stuff, I didn't have to do that. All I had to do was sort of like, it was basically sculpt it out, then smooth it onto the arm, and then just wait for it to cure. And then once it stays on tight, and it works really, really good. So I really love how it comes out. As you can see, like, we get some articulation with both of the arms. I did have to sand in the holes a little bit. We remove this. We get some articulation in the legs. And the legs, though it's a little bit more stiff, so I might go back and do, like, the Dremel tool to sand it out the waist a little bit. The torso is actually sort of like my own little custom decal. own little custom decal that I made through Drawcast and Photoshop stuff. Basically, it was basically like a simple like torso, muscular torso decal painted up in black, redid the outlines in gray, and then photoshopped the Batman Beyond symbol as well as the belt on there. I did have to paint up the belt a little bit, but not too much though. The bat symbol though, painting this up was really tedious. I definitely wanted to paint it up and to make it stand out a little bit more, because like the standard print off red, it does look, it looks very faded out, and I didn't like it for this character. So I carefully like took a push pin and gently and carefully like filled in the bat symbol as best I could. It was really, really tedious, I won't lie. And I had a backup set of decals on standby in case I had to redo the figure. But luckily though, it came out pretty good on the first try, and the next challenging part was to fill in the black, which was also tedious as well, with the individual detailed lines to represent like the muscles, and same thing on the back. It was a little easier on the back, but still avoiding on messing up the lines as well as the belt was a bit tedious, but I'm glad I managed to pull it off in the end. Now looking at the major parts, the cowl. So the Batman Beyond cowl was definitely something like an interesting approach that I really gave to it. So when I first did, when first doing it, I definitely took some inspiration for when I did like my Batwoman and my Dark Knight minifigure on cutting up a cowl, and cutting up like my last spare Batman cowl. It was the last one, so I'm gonna have to buy some more. But my last spare Batman cowl, then basically like kept the mask, did a little bit of sanding, and then glued it back onto the head. And originally I was going to sculpt out the ears, but no matter how hard I try, I couldn't like sculpt out the ears to where they were at like the same length. One of them would come up high, and come up like a bit too high. They would go sideways. Anyways, it was a mess as to like figure out. So what I tried to do instead was attempt to like take the ears, sand them off on the inside, and then like basically sculpt use the Procreate clay to basically fuse them onto the head. It's not perfect. Like you can see that like this ear slightly comes out a little bit, and comes out a little bit. There's a little bit, but it does keep up with that representation for Batman. And also with the whole head in general, you can kind of see that it's not that like, why didn't I just use a regular Batman cowl? Because that wasn't the aim I was going for. Like, let's get the armored Batman Beyond out here for a second. Like, we could see the original Batman Beyond minifigure we did. And so the difference between this one as well this one and this one is basically like the head shape. Like this Batman is more suited for like Bruce Wayne, for instance. And as I was looking at some photo references of like between Batman Beyond, with like Bruce and Terry, I noticed that Bruce has a more squared jaw, and his cowl is basically designed for that. But Terry's, while he still kind of does have a little bit of a square, it's more circular, and that's what I was trying to transition over for this minifigure. So that's why I busted up the cowl into pieces, into components, and resculpted it on with clay. I was trying to replicate that idea that it's not super circular, but it does sort of have like that same jaw structure. Plus when I put on that cowl on with this minifigure, I thought it looked bad, and I didn't really like it. So I wanted to try out something new. In hindsight, though, I probably should have painted the head white first, then glued on the cowl, because when I went to painting the eyes, the white would fill in too much. I had to go back in with some black, and it was basically just a ridiculous process of like going back and forth, trying to like keep the paints from overflowing with one another. So I might potentially like go back to the cowl one day and try it again. But this isn't bad for the first try. Like, it's not terrible. It could have come out much worse. But there is room for improvements, and that's sort of like what I work forward to on the channel. And finally though, I filled it up with the clay underneath the mouth, and I painted on like his white mouth outline. This was also a little bit of a tedious task that I had to go back and fix a couple of times, but it has gotten to a point that I'm somewhat satisfied. Like, again, I'm not super satisfied, but it definitely could have come out a little worse than this. this. Now, one more thing before we wrap it up is definitely another piece that I wanted to add is we remove the head for 1 second, and we pull out his glider wings. That's another reason, like, hang on, we need to move the arms a little bit. But one of the things that I love about, like, this Batman is the fact that he can fly. Like, instead of a cape, it's retractable wings that I'm pretty sure Bruce got the inspiration from, like, Nightwing's costume, like how he has the wings underneath his arms. I think that's where the inspiration came from for when he was designing this suit. But if we look at it over here, it does give off, like, if these arms could spread out and could actually, like, position the arms, it would definitely look like Terry it would be, like, spreading his arms and activating his wings to fly. Like, we could see that, like, you could see, like, this red over here. We turn it around, we get, like, the black, like, this black paint. I went with fabric, fabric for this time. I almost thought about sculpting those out, but when looking at the wings, I've noticed that, well, they're probably, like, some sort of, like, special metal fabric. They are more fabric-based, less of, like, actual, like, solid wings. So I wanted to sort of carry that out over here. Plus, it would have been, plus it saved time on sculpting out, well, not really sculpting out, but more of cutting out the neck piece of where I would, like, put the wings on. I would, like, put the wings on, here, tracing out of, like, how big they had to be. I did have to, like, make some trimmings a few times, and definitely had to apply multiple layers of red paint to get the solid color. But in the end, I definitely love, like how this looks. This looks like, you'll see it in the thumbnail for it, but I really like how it looks in the final, finally in the end, and I really do like this. Like, again, I could have changed up the cowl a little bit better, maybe, like, fix up those ears a little bit, do a better job on painting, like, the eyes and stuff. But aside from, like, a couple of, like, problems here and there, in the end, I do love how this figure came out, and this was a fun little side project. To do. And overall, that's gonna do it for this episode of LEGO Arts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I still have the other Batman Beyond out here, sort of like do the comparisons here, and we can really see sort of like the difference between this one and this one. This one I was going for a more armored look, and trying better out more like hand detail and everything. And this one was sort of like just a quick done like decal mixed with paint here and there. And well, I do really like how like this one came out. I do like how both of them are in general. Granted, I probably could have done something different with the previous Batman Beyond, but I do like this brand new one, and it's sort of like another experiment of like new ways of how I can customize minifigures. I might go back to Batman Beyond in the future, like redoing like the cowl and fixing the ear and stuff. But for now, this is pretty much gonna do it. On Batman Beyond. So talking about with some other minifigures. I also printed off like a new set of decals for Miles Morales, so I'm gonna be like painting up those and redoing Miles. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've just finished up the base for King Kong. I still need to paint him up, which is probably gonna take a while. I might need to get some like brown paint, because I need to look at some photos of like King Kong's fur tone to like really get that coloration for Godzilla vs. Kong. For the Godzilla vs. Kong showcase. I still need to get started on some stuff like Umbrella Academy 2, as well as Ruby Volume 8. So I still have a couple of ideas like floating around that I will get to eventually. But I'm pretty much just doing it like one at a time, like as I go on. And some other news, I'm hopefully gonna be back on like Let's Plays and streaming like pretty soon. Like, I've been having troubles with my systems again, and my recording setup again. So hopefully now everything is like all fixed. I tested it out and it says it's okay, but I'm gonna test it out again later on, and if it says we're alright, if it says we're okay, we'll be back on Let's Plays for Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, and hopefully go back to the Batman Arkham Knight New Game Plus live streams. And overall, that is gonna pretty much do it. And also, quick side note, like, if you want to see like if you're interested in like seeing some other Batman Beyond characters like in the future, like characters like Old Man Bruce, Ace, Blight, Ink, and all those other characters, other characters, let me know down in the comment section below so I can prepare for like some new ideas for some new minifigures in the future. If you want to check out like some of my other showcases, like God of War, Detroit Become Human, Devil May Cry, Kingdom Hearts, and all those other ideas, you can check them out in my LEGO Arts playlist. If you want to get a better look at my LEGO decals, you can check them out on my DeviantArt page, which will be in the description below. And overall, that's gonna pretty much do it. So, if you guys would like to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notifications, so we'll help us. Let's play LEGO products. I'm man, that have some fun. So anywho, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you think, share your friends, subscribe to YouTube, follow me on Twitch. And here's a half of the road. Woo! Thank you guys, I'll see you next time. What do you guys, Moon Rises?